Very good evening, everyone. So, what we are going to do, we will continue our discussion on ethics case studies today. Yesterday, we have comprehensively covered all the section A topics. You might have already noticed what our major focus was how to think, how to approach different questions. Having a general mindset for how to approach different questions, that was the whole focus of yesterday's class. Then we see what different changes you need to incorporate in your answers with your existing knowledge base. What are some of the key factors you should focus on in answer writing depending on different type of the question. For example, we discussed about the quote based questions. What changes you can make when you are speaking about what exactly if you this quote mean to you is being asked, or if this quote mean in the current context is being asked, what kind of changes you incorporate in your answer. These kind of elements we have seen in the last class, everything with respect to section A. So in this class we'll focus on the section B, that is case studies. Before that, we already told this yesterday, the details you can check out from the website. We have 3 ethics courses for being released in the after the mains 2023. So the idea of 3 different courses is simple, like you buy the course which meet your requirement, which help you, which you have certain requirements or depending on your level of preparation. If you are somebody who has well versed, covered the syllabus, written mains before, or are very quite confident in the different syllabus in writing case studies and ethics section A papers, you better go for the ethics test series only. You just need to practice answer writing, get the right feedback on time, and go into the paper, consolidate your ethics preparation. If you are somebody who is done some reading, done some courses in some foundation batches, or done some reading of XYZ ethics book, but you are not so confident in answer writing, you are struggling with how to address different demand of the question, or you are struggling with understanding the ethical demands, ethical arguments to make, struggling with making ethical arguments in the paper. For these kind of issues, if you are facing, you can go with ethics marks improvement program. It discusses different crimes types of frameworks you can apply throughout the paper, whole syllabus, how whatever the questions comes on emotional intelligence, what are the different dimensions you should think on. So whatever questions comes on probability, we see in the example of probability in the last class itself. So that was just a miniature version. In this course, you will get an expanded for every part of the syllabus, how you can approach different questions. Similarly, it's basically we will cover a lot amount of PYQs in this program also. The workshops are being done, conducted offline, and it will start on 7th of October. Going forward, if you are complete newbie to the ethics, you want to learn ethics from the scratch, you have time, more time to devote to the basics of the ethics, then you can go with the ethics foundation batch. It covers from the very basics what exactly is ethics and what exactly is dimensions, building argumentative dimension in ethics, building different example base, everything will be in detail covered in the ethics foundation course. It's around a 40-hour lecture series, then it will be accompanied with workshops and other associated content. So this is basic about the courses that is to be launched on ethics. Now going forward, what do you expect from these classes? I already told, our focus majorly is not on learning too much on what exactly is the content, what exactly delivering content is not our focus. Our focus will remain on how to approach different questions, how to meet the demand expectation in answer writing. So, and what kind of questions we seen in this year's paper, and what based on this, what kind of strategy we can evolve for ethics in if you are preparing for 2024 mains. So this will be the overall approach of the whole discussion. Now, yesterday we have seen so much of screenshots, so much of page screenshot from ethics marks improvement booklet. So this booklet is freely available from our website, or you can download it from our Telegram channel also. It contains, if you are struggling, such a person who are struggling with remembering examples, this is kind of a huge collection of examples for every syllabus topic for last 2-3 years, contemporary, whatever discussion debates is going on in the news, everything is comprehensively covered in this booklet. So if you need a comprehensive collection of examples for ethics, for value addition in ethics, do check out this booklet. This will be like one consolidated source for all your example needs. So this is like the page showing the section for case studies in the ethics marks improvement booklet. So you can see here like last 55, around last 5 pages of the booklet is related to case studies. Rest all the booklet is about the section A and different examples. So how we approach case studies. This is not just for in the marks improvement booklet, how in general how we approach case studies when we start preparing the course and when we start discussing with the students who were writing the 2023 mains. If you look at the 2022 paper, what were some of the key issues a student who look at the section B is facing? What is a major issue the 2022 paper? Most of the case study you might have seen extremely long case studies. Some of the case studies have different dimensions of media, dimensions of killing of a police officer. Then the case is about some personal conflict. So the complexity was quite high. And what is the third exactly issue from a student perspective? Complications in 2022 paper. Third complication, it was long, complex, and number of questions were huge. Most of the questions, case studies came with 4 questions, 5 questions, that also 1 question similar to GS. So this whole construct made it quite very difficult paper to tackle. Now implication of all this will come in, completion of the paper becomes quite very tough. So this was our scenario. This is what we were trying to comprehend and and resolve the issues. These were our main focus when we developed the 2023 mains paper. Now coming to 2023, what kind of questions came? If you have fairly gone through the questions or if you have seen the trend analysis video, we have already discussed that this year almost all case studies are extremely short, 2 paragraph, 3 paragraph, that be not too much of complexity. But interesting part is many of the case studies were kind of application type case studies. That is not quite difficult to tackle if you have a plan, if you are consolidated with syllabus preparation, then it's not quite a difficult case studies. Similarly, number of questions in most case studies are 2 or 3. And 2 or 3 questions also, it's not like GS question or complex question. Questions are very straightforward. What are the ethical issues associated in the case? What are evaluate the different options in the case? We'll see today. So if you, from trend perspective, if you look, there has been a complete reversal in the nature of questions that is being came in, especially in the case studies. It quite evidently seen in the case studies. Now again, same logic what I told today. In this paper, if you are writing this paper, the whole advantage you can get is by completing the paper decently. If you are just attempted what is the requirement of every question and completed all the paper, you are having a significant advantage. Now come to 2022 paper. Here advantage of completion paper is nullified. Almost every student who written 2023 mains might have fairly attempted the paper, fairly completed the paper. It's only 2-3 questions being asked in case studies, and it's also not long case studies. So this is not the challenge. Now when paper become easy, when paper become less challenging, what is the deciding factor? Deciding factor comes to quality of your answers. Now here is where the judgment going to happen this year. You might see if you are missing out on not writing in impressive introductions, if you are missing out on not writing impressive conclusions, if you are not writing points in a logical order, if you are missing out some of the dimensions what is asked in the paper, everything, these kind of mistakes, structural mistakes if you make in the paper, everything is going to be severely punished this year, because the questions are such that many of the students will write absolutely stunning answers, because whatever you read in the syllabus, whatever notes you read, whatever test series you do, even so many questions in section A as well as case studies are ditto from our own test series also. Many of, if you ask any test series that decently follows the whole syllabus, might get so many questions replicated from the test series. So all this advantage make the game of quality. You have to have the ability to generate ethical arguments. You have to have a plan how you are going to bring quality into your paper. So that is whole about the construct. Now how to address case studies. There are some basic rules you should keep in mind when addressing case studies. The most fundamental thing is do not overread it. You cannot expect next year a short case studies come, next year a long case studies come. Whatever it is coming, you should have an ability not to overread it. Now, how to avoid overreading, like reading the case study 2 or 3 times? You don't have luxury of time for doing all this. Now, how to avoid this? You should have an approach to how you are going to read the case studies. You should have a pre-plan in your mind what you are going to think. Are you going to look at the stakeholders? What I usually suggest is look at the stakeholders. Who are all the stakeholders? If father is there, son is there, mother is there, make them some round or underline. Do something to pinpoint each the stakeholders. Look at what is the demand of each of these stakeholders. What is their requirement? What is their demand? What are they fighting for? Or what is their values? If this much you can understand in a case study by reading it once, who are the stakeholders, what is they want, and what is their guiding values. If this much you can reach, then ethical issues, where ethical issues will come. Ethical issues will come from conflicting values. And this much if you can think while reading the case studies, then you can think of ethical issues from the value perspective. It is only when you write in terms of the value, then only your answer become ethics related answer. Otherwise, if ethical issues is being asked, you are writing something else, it doesn't make any sense. Similarly, what else? Students has this habit of writing stakeholder diagram. What to do with this? It's better you not do it. But again, it is a subjective call. If your case study is short enough, if you have luxury of time and space, you need to fill the papers, then go for making the stakeholder diagram. If you have a long case study, your approach should be a normal introduction. That is a 2 or 3 line introduction. Then you directly go to what exactly is asked in the case, ABC, whatever it is asked, you write in that direction. Now, how to make your introduction interesting? What work you can do on making introduction interesting? First and foremost point, what you can do is, simple way is highlight the ethical conflict. Highlight the highest ethical conflict. Is it a conflict between work-life balance, or is it a conflict between 2 employees in an organization? What exactly is the conflict in the case study? Highlight the major conflict. That is the easier way to introduce. If you can remember some of the current affairs, linkage topics regarding similar to the case studies, especially for these case studies which is related to pollution, especially to those case studies which is related to something like war, terrorism, or some kind of illicit activities going on, that case studies mostly will be derived from some current developments that happened in the near past. If you can relate some current affairs developments, you can obviously start your case by mentioning that development as it is. So these are different approaches. Now, how you make your case study exceptional, how you can make your case study stand out is, or how you can address if a challenging case study, challenging paper come next year, a lengthy paper come, how you can address the demand of the paper decently. What approach we followed last year was, here you can see this is about case study based on public sector. Similarly, we have divided case studies based on last 10 years inference. What type of case study is being asked in the paper? Case studies based on public sector, case studies based on private sector, and case studies based on application. Here there is gender, here there is environment, different aspects. In private sector, in pollution, private companies enforcing some unethical activities. So we have identified around 10 themes, 12 themes, that is around 10 themes that is continuously being repeated in the last 10 years. Even in the 2022 paper, 2023 paper, you will see case study related to compensation, case studies related to pollution, case studies related to work office conflict. So these themes are continuously being repeated. Only number of stakeholders is changing. So identify the themes. If you want a pre-identified list, go to the MIB booklet, see the last pages, you will get a 10 different themes. If you can do it yourself, do it yourself. Identify what are the, what you can say, repeated themes in the case studies. Now, once you identify the repeated themes, what you have to do is, you go for making a model answer for this. What are the ethical issues under this theme? What are the ethical issues beyond that? What are the options you can generate in this case? And what can be the best course of action in this case? What are the reasons, pros and cons, evaluation of each option you are going to do in this case? So make notes for all these themes. Makes current affairs linkages for all these themes. If you do this exercise, even at reading the MIB booklet or by yourself or whatever end, if you have identified the themes of the case studies, if you have done, make your notes for it, that consolidates your mains preparation. Whatever question paper comes for 2024, at least 3-4 questions from your notes or these themes or related areas. You can easily generate, if for these 10 themes you have learned to generate ethical arguments, generate ethical issues dimensions, generate what can be the options for 10 themes. Then it is understood that you, any themes, any case study comes, you have some kind of solid point with you. So this can be one your solid approach to make your case studies, make your arguments stand out. It is not a game of innovation during the exam. Many times we hear the comment that you should come up with innovative options, you should come up with innovative suggestions. But many a times understand that this innovation, whatever people are speaking about, this doesn't happen during the exam. It doesn't happen when you are sitting for the exam. If you want this to happen, you have to prepare your, it should happen in your preparation. And how to prepare this is what we have been discussing all so far. So I got you had a clear picture on how you should approach case studies in ethics. So on that note, we will go to 2023 question. So this is the seventh question, number 7, 20 marks question. I want you to, if you are watching online, pause the video, you go through the whole case once, then we will continue the discussion. You can read the case. Yeah, I hope you have read the question. Let's continue our discussion. So let's read the questions once. You're working as an executive in nationalized bank for several years. So who you are an executive. Okay. One day that you can consider it as stakeholder one. One day, one of your close colleagues tells you that her father is stakeholder two. Tells you that her father is suffering from heart disease. Stakeholder three. And needs surgery immediately. She also tells you that she has no insurance and operation will cost about 10 lakh. You are also aware of the fact that her husband is no more and she is from a lower middle class family. You are empathetic about her situation. However, apart from expressing your sympathy, you do not have the resources to fund her. Okay. A few weeks later, you ask her about the well-being of her father and she informs you about his successful surgery and he is recovering. She then confides that the bank manager, another stakeholder, fourth stakeholder you can say, was kind enough to facilitate the release of 10 lakh from a dormant account. So there will be some dormant account owner, you can call it him 5, of someone to pay for the operation of with a promise that it should be confidential and be repaid at the earliest. She was already started paying it back and will continue to do so until it is all returned. Understood the question? So bank is there, you are an executive in this. Always fix who you are. Whatever answer you are going to, there are so many questions, it asks about your response in this question also. So when you are speaking about your response, you should have an absolute clarity on who you are and limit your whatever actions you are going to suggest based on who you are. You should have a clarity on this. So the story I think is clear. What is the issues we need to address? What are the ethical issues involved in the case? Evaluate the behavior of the bank manager from an ethical point of view. How would you react to the situation? 3 questions we need to handle. So first, how we start with introduction? Most easiest way, that is highlight the core ethical issue in this question. Situation involves emergencies can sometimes blur the line between what is ethically correct and what is not, as seen in the scenario between a bank manager and an employee. So what the introduction is saying, when situations of life comes, when situations of emergency come, it is quite very difficult to understand the line between what is ethically right and what is ethically wrong. And it is on this construct the whole case study is made, where a bank manager and his employee is having a XYZ kind of interaction that raises serious questions. On this note, we are starting the answer. 3-line introduction, directly move to what is exactly asked. What is asked here? Ethical issues involved in this case. So yesterday when we were discussing the class, what focus we were keeping it on? How you can develop your argumentation on different aspects of how you can develop different type of arguments, ethical arguments in different questions. All that knowledge you use in the section A, it equally applies to section B also. Here also, whatever the frameworks we have learned ourselves or equipped ourselves in section A, that framework some level you should get the application in the section B also. See how it is done. This is one of the classical framework we always discuss in the section A. Whenever you have to dissect some of the XYZ incident has happened. Here it is already happened. What the bank manager already given, whatever amount has to be given, the decision is already being taken and the result is already in front of us. It is after this we are going to dissect the ethical dimensions of this. Whenever you have to dissect an incident or a application or any XYZ news, random news that came up, for example, the women reservation bill, whatever you have to, how you develop different ethical argumentation in support or against women representation bill that is introduced recently in the parliament. The idea is think from different theories. These theories we deal comprehensively in our ethics classes, from virtue ethics of Socrates or Aristotle to deontological ethics of Immanuel Kant to utilitarianism approach to contractarians, justice approach, John Rawls theory of justice, rights-based approach, capability approach of Amartya Sen. These are some of the theories we already know. We already have a basic idea of what these theories are. Now, what we want to do is apply this theory and find ethical issues. Apply these theories into the whatever the question that is being asked. That is, in this case, we have to apply these theories and find ethical issues. How you can apply virtue ethics? Virtue ethics, what virtue ethics speak about? Virtue ethics speak about character. Whose character is in question in this case study? Character of the bank manager. He has done something that is dishonest. He has done something that is unacceptable. He has done something that violates XYZ virtues characteristics, violates principles of honesty, truthfulness. So character is the first thing you can think of from virtue ethics perspective. Deontological principle. What are the moral principles he has violated? He violated the rule, bank procedures. Dormant account means it is somebody else's money, not the money of the bank manager. He has violated these rules to XYZ arrange the fund for the employee. Whatever the purpose it is, deontological approach will focus only on one thing. Whether there is a violation of ethical rules or moral principles. Similarly, utilitarianism approach. There can be long-term consequences. What is utilitarianism approach all about? It is all about greater good of greater people. Here you can see some greater good has already been happened because the surgery already being conducted, the father is being saved. But what is the dangers of this? It can set a dangerous precedent. You can speak of slippery slope. What slippery slope is all about? Slippery slope is all about if you allocate money from a dormant account today, tomorrow it can be allocated for some fraud activities, from some illegal activities, from some activities that violates the principles of banking. Similarly, you can think from contractarians, you can think from justice approach, fairness, right to property, rights approach, you can think right to property of the whatever the account holder, dormant account holder is being violated here. So all these different aspects, think on these dimensions, you can at least generate 5-6 ethical issues easily. You can see what we have done in this answer. Yeah, think from virtue ethics. He demonstrated dishonesty and lack of integrity by using funds from dormant account without permission. Somebody else's money the bank manager is using without permission. Similarly, deontological perspective. What is deontological perspective? Violation of moral principles like respect for property, fidelity, non-maleficence. What is it? Maleficence? Non-maleficence, do no harm. Rule of law. Various moral principles has been violated under this deontological perspective. Utilitarianism perspective, we already said, it set a dangerous precedent. It can go out of hand if other managers or other employees in the bank also start doing this. Slippery slope argument. Justice perspective, unfair as it is not manager's hand to decide how to use the fund. Similarly, rights-based approach, property rights of the account holder compromised. Capability approach, compromise the ability of manager to maintain trust. Speak about importance of trust in various public organizations, including nationalized banks. So these are different ethical issues you can highlight in this case. I hope you got a fair idea of how to apply this approach. Why we use this approach, our major objective is not to show you different dimensions. This dimension you can even generate without any approach. But if you learn to use this approach, if you have 5, 6, 7 approach ready in your hand, whatever the case come, you can apply some of these approaches and your generation of ethical issues, arguments becomes quite easy. On that note, let's go to the next part of the question. What in the next part we have to do? Evaluate the behavior of the bank manager from an ethical point of view. So what we can do here, evaluate means you have to write the positive as well as negative sides. You have to write the ethical arguments in support of the manager and ethical arguments against the manager. So how to generate points here? In last part we generated points looking at the incident from different theories, different ethical theories. Now let's try to learn a different approach. You can divide the bank manager's conduct into different parts. The major issue he created or the major problem he done is release of fund from the dormant account. So what are the positive and negative aspects of this? Think on this, generate at least 2 points on this. Second, the matter is kept confidential. It is not, thing is like yesterday also we seen a question, similar question. If you have to do something that is beyond the law, if you are going beyond the law under certain circumstances due to the emergency situation, it is never okay to keep it confidential. It is never okay to hide the matter and do the thing. You should always document. You should always highlight what is the emergency situation. You should highlight the logic or legal aspects of it. You should consult legal consultants and reach a conclusion. There are other provisions of the law which applies in this case. Only on that basis you can go beyond certain legal precedent. Keeping the matter confidential, that is never being accepted. So this conduct also you generate 2-3 points on based on this. Third is to be repaid at the earliest. Like the woman already started paying back the loan and the woman is paying back and she's saying that she will continue to pay this money back as soon as possible. So this construct, what is the ethical positive, what is the ethical negative aspects of this. So what we have done here, we need more number of points to be generated. And what is one of the easiest path for it? The conduct of the manager, we are trying to divide into different heads. At least 2 or 3 parts you divide the conduct of the manager. You generate your points from each of these heads. That makes your work quite easy. Now see what answer we have got after this. See, evaluation of behavior of bank manager, ethical arguments in support of the manager. He exhibited compassion. He helped the woman out of compassion. Similarly, sympathy, empathy, all elements you can bring into. It is in the moral duty of human being to save a life. Whatever the decision bank manager has taken, he has taken it with a good intentions. That you can prove it here. There is no personal gain involved. He has taken the mitigating emergency circumstances. He has shown his ability, or he handled the emergency situation so that a life is being saved. That needs to be appreciated. And he also made a provision to repay the bank loan as soon as possible, and the woman also started paying back. These are some of the aspects where you can support the bank manager. Some of the ethical arguments you can say in support of the bank manager. But on the other hand, what you can say, the bank manager violated rules, precedents, rule of law is being violated. There is breach of trust, there is procedural lapses, there is confidential. If it is kept confidential, that means there is lack of transparency in decision making. There is misuse of funds. There is attempt to cover up whatever is happened. There is failure to explore other alternatives. Taking money from a dormant account is per se illegal activity. So bank manager should have looked for some other alternative, some other legally more feasible alternatives to help the employee. Never conclude the answer with saying that the bank manager shouldn't have helped the employee. The bank manager should have helped the employee, but the means that bank manager adopted is completely questionable. You should write a statement after this also. Like when the question is evaluate, what is the conclusion of your evaluation? That also you should bring into your answer. That the objective of the bank manager can be substantiated to some extent. Being said, there is no way the means adopted by the bank manager can be substantiated under any grounds. That should be your conclusion after the ethical evaluation. Going ahead, the third part of the question. How would you react to this situation? In this question, you should understand who you are. You're not bank manager or you're not the employee who is being affected by this. You are an executive in this nationalized bank. So it is from that perspective you should speak how you should react to this XYZ situation. When you respond also, you can try to, when you think from a uni perspective, if you think what will be my response, then you directly jump into the situation, then it's always quite difficulty to generate 7-8 points. So what you can do here, think to break up the question. What is your response to manager's contact that we have discussed in the last? What is your response to bank as an institution, or the impact of this contact on the bank as an institution? What is your response to the issue of at hand, that is when certain emergency issue came, what is your response to that? What is your response from post case scenario? That means whatever that has to be happened or has already happened, the bank manager already given the money, already taken the money from the dormant account. Now what you will do? Will you report the case to the authorities? Will you report the case to the bank? Will you directly talk to the manager? So all on these different fronts you try to generate 2-3 points. You will get more than 10 plus points quite very easily. Some of the points are given here. I'm not going too much into discussion, but this approach is what you should keep a focus on and learn. Advise against unethical practice, counsel the disclosure, insist returning funds, recommend legal options, uphold banking rules, refrain from cover up, highlight improper action, urge remedial action. All these are different ways in which you confront the what has already happened. But thing is, when your response is being asked, it is a generalist question. Your response should not be only based on bank manager's contact. Your response should take into consideration all other factors. Your response should have what is your response to bank as an institution, to the particular emergency issue. Everything should reflect in your answers. That way you can generate more number of points. And in conclusion, you can conclude with similar lines. While human empathy can lead to acts of compassion, it is essential to ensure that ethical boundaries and institutional protocols are not compromised, as they safeguard the interest of all stakeholders. Thing is, we are dealt in a situation where some decision has been taken based on empathy, compassion, but that whatever he has done is completely unethical. Whatever stance you take, don't completely support the manager's conduct. On that note, you can conclude the answer. I hope you got a fair idea how we are approaching generating different points and different answers. Let's move ahead. Let's read the question, pause the video here, read the question, then we will continue. Yeah, so let's understand the second question or the eighth question in your paper. Let's read the question once. Again, the same practice we will do. We'll try to identify who are the major stakeholders of this case. Then we try to generate points by following some of the frameworks, some of the approaches to different parts of the answer. Let's speed it up things. A landslide occurred in the middle of the night of 20 July XYZ in a remote mountain hamlet approximately 60 kilometers from Uttarkashi. Okay, the landslide was caused by torrential rain and has resulted in large-scale destruction of property and life. Property and life destruction has been happened. So those who are impacted by this can be a stakeholder. You are district magistrate of that area. Okay, you have so much of powers, you are in a responsible position. Have rushed to the spot with a team of doctors, NGOs, media and police along with numerous support staff oversee the rescue operations. So you made a team when the disaster has happened, has rushed to the place. You are district magistrate. A man came running to you with a request for urgent medical help for his pregnant wife. So we have a new man here. Then we have his pregnant wife who is in labor and is losing blood. So she is in a critical situation. You directed your medical team is there to examine his wife. They return and convey to you that this woman needs blood transfusion immediately. Upon inquiry, you come to know that a few blood collection bags and blood group test kits are available in the ambulance accompanying the team. Few people of your team have already volunteered to donate the blood. So a person and his wife has approached, she is in a critical condition and the doctors are there and there is some kind of medical system available to conduct the blood transfusion that is to be conducted soon. Being a physician, you who has graduated from AIMS, you know that blood for transfusion needs to be procured only through recognized blood banks. Your team members are divided on this issue. Few favor transfusion while others oppose it. The doctors in the team are ready to facilitate the delivery provided they are not penalized for transfusion. You are in dilemma. Your professional training emphasizes on prioritizing service to humanity and saving lives of individuals. So we have a situation, even the district magistrate is a doctor, a disaster has happened, the rescue team has reached the spot, pregnant woman needs blood transfusion. But there is a legal precedent that blood transfusion can only happen from recognized blood banks. So if we wait for recognized blood banks, emergency medical service cannot be provided to the woman. So what is the major difference from this case and the last case we have discussed? In the last case, what we were doing here was, we were looking at an incident that already happened. Whatever has to happen has already happened in that case. That case also had an element of saving a life. That also had similar values of compassion versus legal precedent. A similar ethical dilemma was also there in the previous case. But that case, whatever has to be happened has been already done by the bank manager. Here we are dealing with a situation where you are in the middle of the crisis. Now, whether your stance changes, where in the first case, when the unethical conduct has already happened, for ethical, humanitarian or compassionate conduct, you have given secondary preference. You criticize the bank manager. You criticize the bank manager for his adoption of means. Now you are reached a case studies where you have a similar case where legal aspect as well as humanitarian aspects are coming into conflict. But here the incident has not happened and you are standing in the middle. You have to take a decision. Now here how you are going to address this question. What are the ethical issues involved in the case? Evaluate the options available to you being district magistrate of the area. Two questions you have to answer in this case. What other aspects you can think of to apply? In the other previous question, the crux of the question where it goes. The crux of the question goes to your ability to do ethical analysis to a post facto incident. Here what you have to show is what in this evaluate the options available. You have to show your problem solving skills. You have to show your problem solving skills. You have to show your ability to adopt critical thinking into different situations. Then only you can find an optimum or a above average answer for this question. Let's move ahead. So what kind of introduction you can do? In remote hamlet, following a devastating landslide, a magistrate faces critical ethical dilemma involving life of a pregnant woman and adherence to medical protocols. So I'm not going with any of the fancy introductions. Simply I have summarized what is the major conflict here in this case. Balancing human life against established medical guidelines put the district magistrate in a precarious situation. So this is also another way of introduction, where if you are not too much confident of any current affairs incident, or if you cannot link it with any other aspects, what you can do is you can connect it with you can simply summarize the case study, you can bring in the major stakeholder who is facing some ethical issues and put him in the case. This is a major ethical issue faced by this stakeholder in this case. This can also be one way of introducing the answer. Rohit Kumar, namaste Rohit. Yeah, let's go ahead. So the next part, what are the ethical issues involved in this case? How you are going to address this question? Again, what our approach here is? Our approach here is to not to show you these are the ethical issues. Our approach here is to show you how you can think, generate different ethical issues in a case study. To think, make you exposure, give you exposure to some kind of frameworks. See what frameworks we are going to do here. Think of different aspects. Think from different stakeholders who are available here. Think from the perspective of women. If you are thinking from the perspective of women, what is the major question? That is a question of right to life. If you are thinking from the perspective of organization or public administration, then it is a question of law and legality or rules. Another stakeholder is district magistrate. From a doctor's Hippocratic oath, where the life should be given priority. But at the same time, there is another code of conduct that a doctor should follow in any XYZ situations. So there is a conflict between doctors also. Administration, what is the issues facing? Risk of doing transfusion. Like, think a little bit ahead. Why we are saying that the medical code of precedent says that transfusion should only happen from recognized blood banks. Why it is saying so? Why the law? What is the logic of the law? Because it can lead to certain kind of risk. The woman can get infected of some unknown diseases. The woman can have risk of some kind of new diseases. The baby can also be risk. So to avoid these risk, undertaking this unnecessary risk, a law is being made. So you can think on the perspective of why, what is the logical reason behind the XYZ law that is being in the, or legal precedent that is being in the question. So if you can divide into these different stakeholders dimensions, generating points become easy. And these are some of the ethical issues, right to life versus standard procedures. Similarly, beneficence like versus non-maleficence, violation of autonomy principles, compromising professional integrity and legality, compromising team dynamics, like doctors are also being divided on this matter. Resource allocation issues, like we are already handling a rescue operation. So either when we are going for a rescue operation, either your law is incapable, you don't have enough law that supports the rescue operation team, or your rescue operation resources, that can be blood bank, that can be XYZ other resources that you can go to take to a emergency situation, that is not equipped. At some level there are certain issues, you should go deeper and find these issues. Conflicting roles, like the district magistrate himself is a doctor, so he is also in a kind of a mental conflict. So these are some of the ethical issues you can think of in this case. How we reach these ethical issues? We thought from different stakeholders involved in the case, what each stakeholder's issue he is facing. We try to generate at least one issue for each stakeholders, and that will suffice our XYZ purpose. Similarly, the second part of the question, evaluate options available to you being a district magistrate of the area. This pros and cons analysis, I hope every one of you do. Only one thing I need to suggest in writing the pros cons for every answer. What you should keep in mind is don't overdo this. If you try to bring ethical theories or any other frameworks we try to apply to the pros and cons, I'm pretty sure you can write 5-6 pros and 5-6 cons. And if you generate 3 to 4 options, then that will take all your space. So it is always better try to limit your pros and cons into 2 or 3 points. 3 points of pros and 3 points of cons, that is all we need. Once you do this much is the limit, number of limits you have to do. But you have to keep in mind that number of options you have to generate. Here you have to exhibit your problem solving skills. Here you have to exhibit your critical thinking, your out of box thinking. You can, if you have pre-prepared some of the innovative options, you can put this in the options being generated. How many options you can generate? If 4 options you have generated, that's perfectly fine. If 5 options you can generate, that's great. On minimum basis, if you are running out of the time, at least generate 3 options. But don't come by generating just 2 options. In any case, the 2 options will be obvious. What we are checking here by generating different options is your practical problem solving skills. So you need to exhibit that skill. If you are generating 2 points, there is nothing that going to be evaluated out of that 2 points. So don't generate 2 points, generate at least 4 to 5 points. Then writing pros and cons, limit yourself to writing 2 or 3 points on each section. But keep in mind that you should take into consideration all the stakeholders. Try to, especially in the last year's case, there has been passing references when even though the case study is about a certain issue, that is legal aspect of issue, that is illegal migration into the country, or a case is majorly about a public administration issue, but there is a passing reference of the sick mother of the civil servant, there is a passing reference of the child education of the civil servant. So when this kind of references are being made, try to make sure somewhere in the pros and cons you are using that stakeholder also. Every stakeholder in the case somewhere should find mention in the pros and cons. So on that note, we will move ahead, see what all are the options generated in this case. So one is allow immediate blood transfusion with available volunteers. So we have a conflicting situation. You are standing in between, either allow the blood transfusion, that means neglect whatever is the legal precedent, or you say that only through blood bank you can do the transfusion and don't do this in the emergency spot. So these are the 2 obvious options available with you. What can be other options? As a civil servant, I already told in the last part, whenever you have to take a decision that is against some kind of laws, law is not an end in itself. There were other superseding laws. So try to have a broader perspective of law. Sometimes there may be other law that applicable in this situation. Sometimes there may be some other legal provisions. You are district magistrate. You have so much of overriding powers. Maybe under some certain circumstances, considering the emergency situation, you can override some of the medical precedents. So look for that kind of a laws which gives district magistrate the power to override the legal precedent considering the emergency situation. You are not standing in a normal situation. You are standing in a landslide rescue operation situation. And you are a district magistrate, that means you have access to so much of the power. Now bring the different stakeholders into the construct. Like here the pregnant woman is there. Take the consent of the pregnant woman's family. Take her husband, take her family into consideration and show them or communicate with them the complexities of the case and get their consent if blood transfusion has to be done. Thirdly, you can keep in mind that last case study also I told, if you are doing something like this, document it. Give proper documentation, send proper XYZ files of why you are taking this decision. Do not, whatever decision you take, do not try to keep it under the carpet. So these are some of the provisions you can keep in your mind while generating different kind of the options. So we have generated here 4 options. Allow immediate blood transfusion from available volunteers. Evacuate the woman to a nearby hospital with a recognized blood bank. Inform the family of the risk and let them decide. And if they decided, conduct the blood transfusion there itself. Delay the decision, seek team consensus. Let the doctors themselves reach a decision and proceed based on that. So these are different aspects you can think forward. You can generate more options. Pros and cons, I'm not going into too much of the discussion. I hope you can write it on yourself. So for conclusion, considering the urgency, in this conclusion, I am going to prioritize. If you ask me which decision you should take, always prioritize right to life. Here you have a situation, emergency situation. You are district magistrate. You have XYZ powers, and based on your powers, try to prioritize the right to life of the pregnant woman. Get her whatever medical help she needed in emergency. That should be your primary conclusion attitude. Considering the urgency, the best course of action would be to inform the family of the risk associated with an immediate blood transfusion from the available volunteers, and based on their informed decision, proceed accordingly. So that is, you are taking into consideration the most immediate stakeholders in this case. On that note, we will wrap up this case study. So this is the 9th case study, 3rd case study of the day. Read the case study, then we will continue the discussion. Gone through. Yeah. So let's continue our discussion. So let's read the case once. At 9 p.m. on Saturday evening, Rashika, a joint secretary, was still engrossed in her work in the office. So Rashika is a stakeholder. At 9 p.m. already in late night, she's already doing the work in her office. Her husband Vikram, so her family can be a stakeholder, is an executive in an MNC and frequently out of the town in connection with his work. Their 2 children aged 5 and 3 are looked after by their domestic helper. At 9:30 p.m., her superior, so he is Mr. Suresh, he can be another stakeholder, calls her and asks her to prepare detailed note on an important matter to be discussed in a meeting in the ministry. So he is allocating some kind of work to her at 9 p.m. She realizes that she will have to work on Sunday to finish the additional task given by her superior. Okay, Sunday she have to work on the holiday also if she has to complete the work. She reflects on how she had looked forward to this posting and had worked long hours for months to achieve it. She had kept the welfare of the people at most in discharging her duties. So she is a sincere officer. She feels that she has not done enough justice to her family and she has not fulfilled her duties in discharging essential social obligations. So she is so much sincere in her duties, in her job related duties, that she is not able to do justice to her family responsibilities. Even as recently as last month, she had to leave her sick child in nanny's care and she had to work in the office. Like, that is showing the gravity of compromising at the personal level that is happening to her. Now she feels that she must draw a line beyond which her personal life should take precedence over the professional responsibilities. She thinks that there should be a reasonable limit to the work ethics such as punctuality, hard work, dedication to duty, and selfless service. So the whole question is between work-life balance. How much of personal compromises you can make in personal life? On this basis, this question is being made. What are the questions you have to answer? Discuss the ethical issues involved in the case. Briefly describe at least 4 laws that have been enacted by the government with respect to providing a healthy, safe and equitable working environment for women. So this is quite interesting question. The idea is you can cite any laws that comes to your mind. Recently, labor code is in news. In 2019, we have passed the labor code. There is provisions of working for women at late night shifts. There is provisions of having equality in wages for women. So wages code you can write, or maternity benefit act that has been passed in 2017, that you can come into picture. Then the famous Posh Act and the Vishaka guidelines, all these act can also be brought into other acts like Factories Act or Equal Remuneration Act. All these acts you can cite. Any of the 4 acts you can remember, you can cite in the question answer. Imagine you are in a similar situation. What suggestion would you make to mitigate such working condition? So what are the solution? What are the steps to solution you take? You have to write on that regard also. So how you are going to attempt it? Introduction. Again, we are going to have a simple introduction. The case presents Rashike, Joint Secretary, confronting ethical dilemmas tied to her work-life balance and ensuring repercussions on her personal and professional responsibilities. So conflict between personal and professional responsibilities, that is the major construct or the major crux of these case studies. So the first come ethical issues. So how you can generate points on ethical issues? Before going into your answer, brainstorm yourself. How you are going to generate different ethical issues in this answer? Different levels. At one straightforward approach is, we had a situation, employee in the government office, she is facing an issue between her personal and work-life conflict. So when you think about writing ethical issues, think at different levels. Think at personal level, what is the ethical issues she is facing. Think at superior or the level of manager or the organizational level or the management level, what is the issues. As an organization, public organization, what are the issues associated. Think on these 3 different levels, you can easily generate 5 to 6 ethical issues. What we have generated, professional versus personal commitment. That is a major conflict that is faced by the employee. Welfare of employees versus organizational needs. Similarly, work-life balance issues, duties to the family, self-reflection and self-care, setting boundaries, social responsibility and service. Think from manager level, what are some of the ethical issues from the manager level. Maybe he don't have enough resources, that's why he has to allocate stretch the working time of the employees. Maybe this is not a usual contact. If this is a usual contact, there may be some systematic bias within the organization. So address this bias within the organization. Is this a regular practice, or if woman is in the picture, is it only applicable to women, or the male employees of the organization are also conducted to similar practices? So bring different aspects, different issues at different levels. Don't limit yourself to the work-life balance conflict of this woman or the employee Rashika. Think beyond that. What are the organizational issues of this? What are the managerial issues of this? What are the gender aspects of this? Everything, every aspect you try to bring out some of the points that will comprehensively address the ethical issues dimension. Let's go to the next dimension. At least 4 laws, this I already discussed. You can speak about Vishaka guidelines, POSH Act, you can speak about Maternity Benefit Act 2017. Too much of details, there is not a GS paper. So don't get carried away that you have to remember all these, you have to remember provisions of all these, nothing is required. If you can at least remember the names of the act, think the ethical basis of this, what this per ethical basis of Maternity Benefit Act. It is giving 26 week. If you cannot remember 26 week leave for pregnant women or for delivery, write about the ethical dimensions, which values of equality, values of child care. So it is for appreciating these values, this law has been passed. So on that ethical values terms, you can give the explanation for all these laws. Equal Remuneration Act 1976, Factories Act, Code on Wages 2019, all these, Labor Code, all these you can bring into your answers. Going ahead, the third part of the question, imagine you are in a similar situation. What suggestions would you make to mitigate such working conditions? That means what are the solutions to this situation? So whenever you have solution, what you have to think on 2 aspects. In other questions also, in GS section A also, you will have so many questions where you have to give certain suggestions to some kind of complex issues. What should come to your mind first? Think on short term and long term basis. In short term basis, we have a situation where employee is being subjected to a cycle of imbalance in work life situation. So what is the short term steps you can take so that the problem of the employee in hand is being resolved? On the other hand, what are the long term steps from an organizational perspective, from a manager perspective? What are the steps when the work changes in the work culture you can bring so that the core issues of why this XYZ situation has arisen, that can be addressed? Think like short term measures, long term measures. That is one approach. Then at employee level, what you can do? You can bring in different technological measures. Like today you have this work from home facilities. If overtime work is done, you have the provision of adopting work from home or some other technical means so that the workflow can become more smoother. At management level, what measures you can do? At grievance redressal, if an employee is facing such an issue situation, the first and foremost thing is there should be some platform for he or she to come up and register her grievances. Is grievance redressal mechanism working in the organization? All these long term and short term suggestions should have reflection in your papers. Some of the points include clear communication with superiors, that means short term issues, flexibility in working hours, delegation and team collaboration, set clear boundaries, time management and prioritization, advocate for mental health, seek organizational support, continuous training and skill development, seek feedback mechanism, establish a support system. All these are different elements that incorporates whatever we have discussed. So I hope you got a fair idea. So in conclusion, addressing work-life balance issues proactively and collaboratively and seeking both personal and organizational solutions can help in creating healthier and more sustainable working environment. That means you stress on the importance of having a healthy work-life balance, whether it is in public sector or private sector or any other XYZ organization. On that note, let's move further, go through the 10th question, then we will continue the discussion. You're going. Okay. Yeah, I hope you have gone through the case study. Let's read the case once. Vinod is an honest and sincere IAS officer. So we are speaking about an IAS officer in this case. Recently, he has taken over as managing director of State Road Transport Corporation. His sixth transfer in the past 3 years. His peers acknowledge his vast knowledge, affability, and uprightness. The chairman of State Road Transport Corporation is a powerful politician and is very close to the chief minister. So he